In the last year, we've watched multiple events converge at once, the likes of which not seen in several generations. Out of control fires in Australia and on the west coast of the United States, civil unrest, a brush with civil war, extreme political polarization, an escalation of economic disparity, a massive stock market crash, an attempted insurrection at the Capitol, massive unemployment, a rapidly ballooning national debt, supply chain shortages, growing tensions with China, power grid problems in Texas, the largest infrastructure cyber attack in the United States history, a conflict between Israel and Palestine that is quickly escalating, and to top it all off, a once-in-a-century pandemic that still is raging out of control in countries like India. And if that wasn't enough to awaken people to realize that they should be preparing, we are facing an unprecedented decade that will be fraught with challenges that humanity has never had to tackle. So is it too late to prepare? Hey YouTube, this is City Prepping. If you're new to this channel, my name is Chris, and on this channel we discuss emergency preparedness, aka prepping. I decided to do this video as I've noticed that there's been an overwhelming sense of concern, fear, panic, anxiety that I really haven't seen at levels like I have in the last several weeks. Clearly there's a lot happening in the world, there's a lot happening with our own country, on top of obviously everything that we went through in the last year. I'm getting a lot of emails, and again, just comments, messages from people with questions and comments that are usually along the lines of, is it too late to prepare? I fear something is coming in the next few months and I want to be ready. And I'm hearing these kind of recurring messages that are in the same vein. So what's my answer to all this? Well, instead of, again, trying to send a message to every person and respond, I thought it would just make sense because I think it's something that needs to be discussed within this community. And I would encourage you to stick around. I'm going to talk about a lot of different issues before I get into real practical things that I'm doing and I'm encouraging people to do that I'll talk about here in just a moment. But before I go into the specific solutions, I want to acknowledge that yes, I see the same challenges as well. And that's why I started this channel years ago. There's been a lot of things that I've seen on the horizon for years. Not that I'm some kind of, a prophet or, I have insight into something that you don't, but there's clearly enough that is going around that it definitely, again, even in light of everything that happened last year, if you don't see a reason why you should be preparing, I don't know what will, I don't know what really will encourage you to do so at this point. And by talking about a few of these points that I'm going to go through, I don't want to pile on top of people's fear, anxiety, but I do want to acknowledge a lot of these issues. Things that I'm seeing and things that I'm concerned about and preparing for, and these are in no particular order, is things like the economic disparity that we're seeing with our own country. We're seeing a polarization of wealth. After the economy took a massive nosedive last year, job loss, we saw the ultra wealthy, and there's a distinction between the ultra wealthy and wealthy. We saw a lot of the money within the markets between the middle class, lower income move more and more into the hands of the ultra wealthy. We're seeing supply chains being destroyed. It's harder to get items. We're seeing that impact the car industry, obviously lumber, electronics. I could go on and on and on, but we're seeing, again, after the events of last year, so much of what we were used to with the just-in-time delivery system has pretty much been destroyed. Cyber attacks. These are things that something I've been warning about on the channel for quite a long time. I work in IT, and it's not too hard to see how dependent we've become within this country on the grid and everything working just perfectly. Between the SolarWinds hack of last year and the Colonial Pipeline a few weeks ago, it's clear, and I personally think that we'll see this continue to play out more and more within this country. We're seeing a polarization in politics, the like of which I never have seen, and I never thought I would see in my lifetime. We witnessed this play out in real time in the last year. It doesn't seem to be getting much better. It seems like everybody's digging in their heels on both sides. And I never would have imagined in my life last year, and we saw this play out last year, talk of civil war. Things were getting so polarized. I've talked about it on the channel in the past because I have lived in nations that were post-Civil War, and it sucks to see, and again, I hate to use the word suck because that's almost playing it down. It's horrific to see how horrible it is, what kind of impact it has on the people that live in countries like that. I can tell you it's not the wealthy that are impacted, it's just the everyday person. Their life gets destroyed. Climate change, again, I know when I bring this subject matter up, people get upset within this community, but I live in California. Our environment out here is very fragile and small changes impact it quickly. 2 years ago, if you looked at our drought map versus today, and I'll put an image up here, we're already clearly in fire season. A lot of the West Coast, went up in flames last year. Australia experienced it. And I believe we'll see this escalate over the next several years. And I'm personally trying to take steps to prepare for that as much as possible. Obviously, we're seeing infrastructure decay. We saw this with the power grid failure in Texas a few months ago. We're seeing advancements within AI. Elon Musk has been warning about this. He's on the front edge of AI. Their company, is doing innovative things that will impact us all. And he's even, very concerned about what he's seeing. And I could go on, and I'm not going to just try to pile this on top of you like you should be afraid. The point is, I see these things, and they're clearly issues that are playing out, and they will continue to do so. And again, I only bring this up because some of the points I'm going to bring up, people may feel like I'm kind of playing it down a little with my approach that I'm personally taking and the encouragement that I would say and give to the community. And there's two real things I would encourage people. And before we jump in, I know these are what I feel like are practical steps that you can take. And I'm personally working on a book with my team. In the last few months, I've slowly been transitioning over to full-time with my YouTube channel. I've shared this in the past. I own another business, a web development agency, and I begin to pass more and more responsibilities off to the team so I can come over and focus in this year on the YouTube channel to really help grow it. And we're going to really, when we have been, and we've already begun to lay out a book that I hope will address a lot of these issues, creating real actionable items, things that you can follow. And that leads me into my first point, is that just start off by taking a deep breath, calm down, and build a plan. And again, I brought up the book a second ago because that's one of the things I want to work with on the book, is laying out real actionable items, real steps that you can take. Because there's a difference between having a goal and defining real actionable items, real steps that you can take. It's like this. It's like saying, hey, I want to be prepared for 1 year of whatever, having food, water. If there was an event, my family and I, we could basically shelter in place. We'd be able to take care of ourselves for a year. That's a goal. And that's something that I aspire to. I'm always continuing to work to improve on. But it's different than saying, okay, let me take a step back and create a spreadsheet or something and defining by month steps that I can take to get there. Now, I know it's obviously contingent upon your budget. Not everybody has a budget to go out and buy a year's supply worth of, food, water, storage, all these items. And, but if you could say, hey, I can achieve that in 4 or 5 years, whatever it is, or whatever your situation, start with creating actionable items. Now, I bring up actionable items because what happens is this, is that anxiety is a result of not having a plan. A good friend of mine is an occupational therapist, and we had to talk about this a few months ago. Again, I run 2 businesses. I have, employees that work for both business, and I'm responsible to make sure they're taken care of. And it can weigh heavily on me to make sure everybody's taken care of. And it's easy to get caught up in anxiety of wondering, okay, what's going to happen next? And what I found after talking to my friend is that, look, just sitting down and writing out steps that you can take to get to your goals that are realistic make all the difference. And, for a while, I found myself getting kind of locked up in that fear as the 2 businesses grew. But what I found is stepping back and actually defining these things, it made all the difference. And I'm only bringing this up now because if you're new or if you're concerned about things spiraling out of control, define actionable items that you can take that are realistic and that you can actually follow. There was a book I read years ago, Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace. Some of you in the community know about Dave Ramsey. He's a great, I think if you're starting out and getting your financial affairs in order and you have no formal training or whatever, I think he's a great starting point. And he lays out 7 steps that you can follow. My wife and I, we did them back in 2008. We got out of debt. It was amazing. It changed our life and it set us on a path that had we not followed those steps, I don't think we would be where we are today. But if I were starting out, and again, I'll put a link up to a video in the cards above about prepping for beginners. I lay out some real actionable items in that video. Building water storage, building a food supply. And I don't think I talked about this particular issue in the video, but one thing I would encourage people is focus on your health. Learn the basics of healthy eating. Stop eating, processed food, sugars. It's easier said than done. But there was an app that helped me a lot, and I have no relationship with them. I'm not plugging them for affiliate purposes, but it's called Noom, N-O-O-M, and I've talked about them in the past. It personally helped me. It just helped me redefine and understand food, my relationship with food, just the psychological triggers and how I eat and why I eat and what I eat. I don't know. Maybe it helps you, maybe it doesn't. I got a Fitbit a few months ago, and it just helped me be aware of how many steps I'm taking, and it just really helped me track. because it's easy for me to kind of sit around being inactive. At times I sit behind a desk a lot of times working, and it really, I don't know, help me. Whatever works for you, again, create an action plan and follow through with it. So the next thing is, and this is going to be a little odd, it's not something that's, I don't think, really talked about in the community a lot, but it's enjoy your life. And I know that's easier said than done. And in light of everything that's happened, it's easy to just step back and be like, holy cow, so many bad things are happening. Life is horrible, be pessimistic about the future, etc. And that's just not who I want to be, and that's not what I want to convey to my kids. I have a family, I've got 3 kids, and I've found myself here recently having to kind of pull back and reevaluate, what do I want out of life? Do I want to live in fear? Because it's easy being a prepper to allow your mind to constantly drift to the unknown and what's coming down. I think there's a huge difference between being a prepper and living in fear. A lot of times they overlap, but I don't think they have to. And I would encourage people, once you get that plan lined out, follow it and live in the moment, enjoy your family. If it's just you and you're single, whatever it is, find ways to enjoy the time that you have. I know for me, and I'm going to get a little personal here, it's been easy running businesses. Let me rephrase it. It's not been easy, but as a byproduct of running 2 businesses, it is easy for me to focus on taking care of the businesses. And a lot of my mental energy and time gets focused on that. And as a result, sometimes the impact is that my family doesn't get the attention and time they need. And there's been a lot of times where we're like, hey, we're going to take this vacation, or we're going to go do this thing, or we're going to go out and do this as a family. And we always talk about it as if it will occur. And after the events of last year, for us, we decided, you know what, look, we're going to start mapping out real things that we can do this month. We're going to go on that trip that we've always wanted to take. And we're lining these things out because we want to create memories as a family. And I'm finding myself even, at times it's easier to say, well, I'll just sit around the house and do this. And I'm actually, having to engage myself to get up, let's go take the kids, let's go do things. So I'm saying all this to encourage you, find ways to enjoy the moment that you have right now. I know this is not a typical message within our community, and I'll finish by sharing this story. My youngest son is transitioning into Boy Scouts. Tomorrow night, he has his crossover event to go into Boy Scouts. And our den had their last family get-together, last meeting last Sunday night at our house. It was a great time. A lot of these, these families, we've all been together for years. As our sons, over the last 5 years, been going through Cub Scouts. And one of the fathers, he has a brother-in-law that is, was going through cancer treatment. Treatment didn't work. The hospital's like, sorry, you got to go home, and that's it. There's nothing else we can do. And he shared that story, and one of the other fathers is a physician, and he did share some of the stories of having to make that phone call to patients when they get the lab results back, of pancreatic cancer or something that was incurable, and what that's like having to make those phone calls. And it just, I don't know, it kind of impacted me to say, look, we have no guarantee that there is tomorrow. We can only take care of what we have today. And I would encourage people, and this is something I'm personally trying to implement and improve on, is, do what you can now to enjoy what you have. Because again, we have no guarantees of tomorrow. It's easy to always say, hey, we'll go do this in such and such time frame or one day. And I'm guilty of that. And I've had to pull back and decide to actively engage more than I'm used to and invest in my family. And I believe that's a good thing, right? I'm not going to spend my life chasing down money or businesses or be afraid of the future. I want to enjoy what I have now. Well, I don't know. Hopefully that encouraged people wherever you're at. It's just something that maybe I need to hear myself. But all that to say, it's not too late to prepare. There's a lot that's going to be playing out, I believe, over the next decade. I don't allow that to drive me into the ground with fear or to get me to, clam up. But it does teach me that I need to be prepared. And it's one of the motivating factors for me and my family. So anyway, if you have any thoughts, any feedback, any comments, feel free to post that below. I always enjoy getting feedback from the community. As always, stay safe out there.